This is episode 182 of the Rise Up podcast. We're a morning radio show hosted by Steve and Tim on Family Life, a network of stations across New York and Pennsylvania. This podcast is a weekly conversation designed to help you think and laugh and keep your eyes on Jesus. If you haven't already, subscribe today so you don't miss a single episode. And find out more about our show at familylife.org.
It's Steve and Tim helping you to rise up on Family Life, a friend you can turn to.
Well, we've all heard this phrase. I don't know if we've said it, but we've certainly heard it. Everything happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. Hey, you hear that, and you're like, well, it sounds good and maybe looks good on a coffee mug, but it can feel a little hollow, can it?
Yeah,
at certain times.
Yeah, I want to be clear that, because I know there's different ways of coming down on this.
Sure.
I'd say, all right, ultimately, I affirm the statement. As it stands, I'd say, yeah, I do believe that's true. That's how I believe God works. That being said, like, this whole thing is a huge conversation because it's true, and yet we know, don't we, there are some things that are true and aren't going to be helpful in a certain setting, in a certain sense, and phrased a certain way. I've heard offered as an alternative to everything happens for a reason, the phrase, nothing is wasted. And or God doesn't waste anything is another way of saying it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that maybe if you find yourself in that place where somebody is in a really hard spot, there's probably a lot of, maybe there's wisdom in not saying anything at all, quite honestly. And that's something to talk about a little bit more here, maybe in a minute. But saying that and being able to say confidently that God doesn't waste anything, that there might be a place where that's easier to receive.
Right. And we admit and we say that, see, all things in the Bible, all things are not good, right? But God can take those things and work them for good. Now, we don't see the big picture. God has the advantage of seeing the big overall picture. We just see the minuscule, what's going on at the time. And many times things are not good. But also, when you say that God never wastes anything, we have some scars and hurts and things when those bad things happen. But here's one good, I'll suggest, that can come from it. That bad that you're going through or have gone through, now, as I like to say, your ministry has increased because now you're going through something specific that you've gone through, and it hurt, and it was bad. But now you come up with you come up to somebody who's going through the same thing that you've already been through, that experience, that pain, that scar that was not good, but God can use that scar to help someone else. It's just the way that God works, and we don't see that picture when we're going through it, but that bad thing becomes a good thing when it's helping someone else.
And I'd say I know we'd agree on this, like, as that's totally true. I wouldn't tell somebody who's in the middle, like right now it's happening, like, hey, don't worry.
Right.
I know this is horrible. Don't worry. You'll be able to help somebody who's been through it.
Right.
But I think you're exactly right, because I think it's exactly what 2 Corinthians says. 2 Corinthians 1, it almost could make you laugh how many times Paul uses the word comfort here. But I think he's trying to make a point. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort. That's one you can start counting in your head. Who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. It's like you're going through it, and you know what? You're going to be able to help somebody else who's going through it too.
Yeah, God doesn't waste it. So many times we are just messy chapters in our life. And we see the stories over and over again in the Bible where there's messy things and terrible things, but God uses them, for his glory. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily, doesn't mean things are good for you at that moment or on this side of heaven. Yeah. Nothing guarantees that things are going to be good. But what is guaranteed, God will use that situation for good. So you have to, in those situations, and it is a mind adjustment because we have this thing called the human nature. and we think about ourselves first, and God has to transform our thinking. But as we're going through these things, and which is why we have community for other people too, as you say, Tim, in the proper way. Sometimes the best thing is to say nothing, and just to be there for someone. But when they need that comfort, is to know, because you've experienced that God has taken that bad thing and He's not wasting your pain. When you know that God doesn't waste anything, that pain, that awful thing that maybe you're going through right now, God is not wasting that. He's not done writing your story, because it's all about His glory.
Yep, it is. And Romans 8:28, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. I honestly would just, for so many things, just rest in that whole chapter. Like Romans 8:28 is a good verse, but the whole chapter is great because it's just invincible hope, really. Not invincible because there isn't suffering. The chapter's full of suffering, but it's still invincible hope because it's rooted in Jesus and the resurrection. I found a story that I just wanted to read it if I could.
Sure.
Because I love how Jason Gray wrote it on his blog years ago, like over a decade ago. But Jason Gray wrote a song that was titled "Nothing Is Wasted." And maybe you remember it. It hasn't maybe been something you've heard just recently, but worth a re-listen. When he's writing about it on his blog, Jason Gray shares a really personal story. And to me, this story is beautiful because it's just a picture of how we might need to be loved and know that we're loved by God in the middle of suffering. So I'm just going to read from his blog. And it's a little bit, but I think it's really good. He's talking to his friend Andy. He says, several years ago, I experienced one of the most healing moments of my life. It happened in the back lounge of a tour bus. I had just poured out my broken heart to my friend, Andy Gullahorn, when I recognized in the silence that fell between us that I was bracing myself for what he would say next. Would he try to fix me? Correct me? Would he reject my pain by offering answers? After a moment, Andy said, Jason, I want you to stand up with me. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hug you, and you need to let me hold you for at least 2 minutes. And I'm going to time it, he said as he took off his watch. So you're not going anywhere. I'm not afraid of male bonding, Jason writes, but 2 minutes is a long time to hug anyone, let alone in the back lounge of a tour bus. I laughed nervously at first because I felt awkward, but then I found myself crying. And not long after that, I started ugly crying. And then, as the last bit of strength I had been clinging to gave itself up, I felt like I sort of went limp and mostly just hung there, held up in the arms of my friend. He didn't ask me to be okay. He didn't offer answers. He just offered himself. Pain is holy, and in the presence of holiness, it's often best to keep quiet. No words passed between us, but what Andy was saying and what God was saying through him was clear. You are loved. You are not alone. I don't know how to put it better than that, because It's not about the words, it's about the presence. And what Jason Gray wrote there, I just find it so beautiful knowing God's with us. That's what we know. God with us.
Here we go. It's another new day. You're listening to Rise Up with Steve and Tim on Family Life.
Now, since I'm the hip one of the two of us, now many of you have already heard, and I have heard of this one, FOMO. FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out. Maybe you have heard of, most of you. But I just saw one recently. Maybe it's been around for a little bit for you somehow hipper people than me. But I like this one better. Hipper than me. No. It's JOMO, not FOMO, fear of missing out. JOMO. Maybe you've heard of it, but it's the joy.
Oh, that's right.
Of missing out. And honestly,
yeah,
I like this one better. Here's why. JOMO is when you realize it's okay to skip the party and say no to that extra commitment and just spend kind of a quiet night with your feet up, maybe eating ice cream.
Yeah.
It's not laziness. It's actually a little bit of self-care as long as you're balancing it. It's about prioritizing what actually matters instead of running yourself ragged trying to be everywhere. Having that FOMO.
Yeah, right.
The fear of missing out. But the joy of missing out, because sometimes the best memories are the ones where You're in comfy pants.
Yeah.
Not in the crowd.
That's a hip choice right there, Steve.
Thank you. I'm that guy.
We hope the rest of your day is just as much fun as this. You're listening to Rise Up on Family Life.
You call someone and they say, I was just thinking about you.
Yeah.
I don't know, that kind of thing sometimes. I have a friend who almost every time I text him out of the blue, it seems I was always like just on his mind. And sometimes I think, like, what does it mean? You ever wonder that? Like, does God have something for you to tell them? Like, this just kind of came about. Does God have something for you to hear from them in this chance conversation? Well, probably. But what if it's not for the reason you and I could think it is? Like, what if it's this? Just that every conversation is a gift. Whether it's out of the blue or whether it was a planned conversation. It's all a gift. When we get the chance to hear about someone else's life, I mean, just think about what we get to do when we're talking. Hear about somebody's life. They get to hear about you get to share what's going on in your heart. I don't know whether you plan that or not. That just sounds like a gift from God to me. Yeah. Conversations. Those are moments where God wants us to be present.
May the blessings of the Lord be with you in all that you do today. This is Rise Up on Family Life.
You've been on my mind because you're leaving today. You're going to college, and I don't feel okay. Where's the one I held in my arms who smiled up at me with those wee little charms? Where's the one who ran down the hall to show how fast you were and how you didn't even fall? Where's the one who lost all their teeth and couldn't eat apples for at least a few weeks? Where's the one who tripped and skinned their knee, who barely cried and then ran off with glee? Where's the one who just started school with their excitement to follow every single rule? Where's the one who always struggled with math and sat with me at the table as I laid out the path? Where's the goofy, adorable, sarcastic tween who just learned how to be playfully mean? Where's the one we anxiously taught how to drive with, both of us so thankful we even survived? Where's the one who just wore cap and gown and skipped across the stage like a really goofy clown? Well, they're all wrapped up in the person of you, who's ready to embark on something brand new, who's ready to face whatever life gives, to learn on your own how life should be lived. And even though I'm not, I know you're ready. So when you come home, expect a lot of confetti. Until then, know I'm praying for you in your new zip code, and that God will be with you as you walk this new road.